G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 16th of February 2026. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate, and according to Vladimir Zelensky, the self-anointed, above elections, El Presidente of Ukraine, the autopen himself, the man without a home, the eternal beggar, has declared, "You're not losing." That's right, Napoleon. You're only reorganizing. But of course, the battlefield realities and the realities of war are such that Zelensky's full of cap and seeds, and that his days are numbered. And we all know that Gen Z has spoken. They do not want the war. Why should they? Why should any European want war? The horrific reality is, however, so many people do. But those who do, don't. They sit in their comfortable little homes with their comfortable TV dinners, leading comfortable lives because they hate children and all they care about is their num-nums, and they sit in their basement crying that life is not fair. But no matter how wishful you're thinking, you cannot change the outcome. No matter how many times you chant, Trump is a dictator. Right? You're nothing but defiant little cowards in your little paranoid dream worlds. But the reality is, Russia has hit again multiple targets across Ukraine. Ukraine's air defenses completely, of course, inadequate. And Ukraine, when they shoot something down, they go, "Our air defense is amazing. They work. And the moment something gets through and gets hit, they say, Russia only hits civilian targets." And then they go crying to Europe saying, they hit, give me better air defenses, give me more. And, of course, Europe complies like obedient little Zionist piggies. Oink, oink, oink. And here we have. The reality on the battlefield is Russia has been grinding away, right? And it's not like Ukraine hasn't been provoking the bear with attacks on Russian soil, and then they complain about Ukraine. All right. And then Ukraine, and then they attack Ukraine, and then Ukraine complains about Russia. It's the merry-go-round of moderns. And eventually, however, the reality will set in. And at the end of the day, it'll be like 1948 when everybody sobers up and goes, "Why did we do this?" Well, you did it because you were proud, and prideful people don't make rational decisions. Well, Russia made the decision to go in after years of ethnic cleansing ignored by the West. The West has often ignored morality in favor of politics. Serbia, Albania, and chosen convenience, like stirring trouble in Serbia so they could grab Kosovo, breaking up Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia. Sorry. But the reality is, right? Where's Zelensky's big battles, eh? Where's his big offensive, right? Where's his victories? There aren't that many, right? And yes, it's true, right? Germany won more battles than it lost, but they still lost the ones that count. And this is the cope in Ukraine is like knowing, right? Or this is why they don't tell you the truth of war, so they can politicize it. Right? The truth is, right, they know Putin's objectives to some degree, right? He has changed them a few times, right? He did add the buffer zones to his maps, but by now, intelligence services have gotten their way. They know where and when Russia's original war plans. So now comes the cope and seethe, right? Oh, they're going to draw up this big red line, and they're going to scratch around and say, "Oh, we stopped the Russians." You know, they want their right. They want their little moments in history books, right? They want their glory, right? They don't want to admit that they got their, that they kicked Russia in the shins and they got their face pulverized. But Ukraine keeps saying, we're not going to accept a bad peace deal. We're not going to accept a bad peace deal. Eventually, Russia's just going to say there's no deal, right? Right? This is, they're going to sit there, right, on their border, right? They're going to, now and again, Ukraine's going to do something and Russia's going to make them fight and Russia's going to retaliate. All right? The rest of the world is slowly going to move on. The Europeans are going to pull back from Ukraine. All right? Everybody's going to realize that Slobomir Zelensky is a petty narcissist who will never step down. He'll keep making excuses. He'll keep begging for money. Ukraine will never pay its bills. And everybody's going to realize it and cut them off. Right? This is why Russia was not sorry to see them go. Russia tried, but Ukrainians keep saying, "Oh, you're supposed to be our friends no matter what." No. Ukraine lived in Russia's house, ate Russia's food, and then wouldn't pay their bills. Right? You got to contribute. Zelensky thinks, we gave him some grain. No, moldy bread. It's not. And it's the same with Poland. Polish farmers are calling Ukraine the land of moldy bread. Right? Ukrainian women were at the Olympics partying. And Zelensky calls them national heroes. They're not. Okay, this is cope. Right? They're just performers. They're not heroes. This is the problem with idolizing. Right? Media and these false idols just want you to idolize everything. Idolize Ukraine. Ukrainians are so clever. Look at this. We sent you a German laser. Look, they made Ukraine made a laser. They're so clever. Yeah, that's how the German laser was broken. Right? We know why. Right? We know. It's like it's like nobody learns their lesson. Right? Animals learn better than humans, I think, sometimes. Right? Animal goes to the water, croc jumps out, eats one, and the rest don't come back to that spot. Right? No, humans will come back the next day and say, "Oh no, the crocodile's gone." Okay, lightning doesn't strike twice. Humans are so full of themselves. Now here we have not much, but it is some. Right, and it's clear, obvious. Right, they're drawing a line through here. Right, they're setting up the battle lines. They're not going to push too far forward. Right, we don't know exactly when, but there's no big push here yet. But they're still keeping the Ukrainians occupied, right? They're definitely zoomed in a little bit, right? Getting ready, probing attacks here and there. But there are some areas where they've been sitting. But, like, they love their railway station, man. They just can't help themselves. Right? Ukraine's, like, well, the crocodiles, day 536 of the crocodile can't be there tomorrow. And yet again, there they go down to the Provost page station, and lo and behold, they get wiped out by Russians. It's like, we're stupid. It's like the amount of manpower, human life that Zelensky has wasted on his pride. But Ukraine is steadily resisting this war, and sooner or later they are going to turn on Slobomir. Right? They know he's incompetent. They know that that everything about him is the media kissing his ass, that the media won't tell the truth, and the media's done for, right? People are going to... Once upon a time, media personalities used to walk, sit in restaurants and get served, and people say, oh, no, you're fine on the bill. Now, it's like, you again. We want to see we want cash this time. Your credit cards, your credit is not good here. The people are sick of the media, right? They suck up to the establishment. They don't go in. Once upon a time, you used to pick up newspapers and the New York Times particularly they'd love to expose the corrupt. Now they cover for them, but they're constantly, oh, it's day one, it's episode 1666 of we got him this time, Well, Zelensky is such a easy target for the media, yet they go after Trump to say, oh, we're holding them accountable. Accountable for what? Doing their job? How many corruption scandals in Ukraine, and yet over and over again, money is stolen, and the media go, it's poor Ukraine. It's not poor Ukraine. Poor Western taxpayers who keep funding this mess. Mess after mess. Right? And what do we get for it? We get a map full of markers that tell us the Russians have been here, right? And we won. Right? If the Russians were losing, it'd be blue markers. Now, this is actually reported by Ukraine that Russia has advanced here. But they haven't updated the map. This map, of course, is volunteers. And we know that at some point they'll just quietly colour this in and ignore, right? Ignore Now, one of the weird parts is, again, right, why the crossing here? I mean, you think Ukraine would just just cross all the rivers, blow the bridges, and protect their flanks. And after 6 to 12 months, right, this war would have been over, right? Russia's already shown that it does have difficulty crossing under fire, right? And river defenses in the past have actually stopped the Russian advances. But now that they've lost so many bridges and Russia's able to flank them, right? You know, the Russians were rising, we stopped them in Ordiv. And now look at it, right? We stopped them, yeah. Look at that. Big old third of the state is now Russian. Oh, yeah, we stopped them in Ordiv. We're not losing. Yeah, bullshit. Right? Pure bullshit. Pure cope and seethe. Right? Zelensky is ever increasingly paranoid. Right? The media are always finding every way they can to make ridiculous statements. Right? Saying, oh, the wonderful weapons. Next thing you know, they're going to say, look at this wonderful tank the Ukrainians invented. And it's going to be, what? A T-56. Oh, wait, they've already done that. Right? Russians' T-56 is made in Ukraine, but they label it a T-72 Ukrainian tank. It's a Russian tank. Right? There's nothing in Ukraine that is Ukrainian. Right? Everything comes from someone else. But they're so in love with the idea, right? Now you could say that. Australia actually made a car. We nowadays, of course, we have Toyota, it's Ford, Mitsubishi. But we don't turn around and say, hey, this is an Australian car. No, we know it's a Japanese car. We know most of the cars are either Japanese or Americans. We did actually used to make our car that we made ourselves. But then the government decided it was just convenient to sell out our car industry entirely to foreign manufacturers. It's like we made a computer way back and then decided to sell all that out as well. But that's our stupidity. At least we admit it. But Ukraine can't admit anything. Right? So why does it matter to Europe so much? Because Europe is covering up all its disasters with debt. And increasingly, they need some sort of political they need either a military or ideological victory. So now they've decided that NATO is going to try and create a victory for Europe in Ukraine. But Europe is now in trouble, and they're now trying to blame Trump, when in reality, time and time again, how many times have we seen European articles saying, we should break from America, Trump is a threat. And then when Trump says, okay, go it alone, see how long you last. And they go, Trump isn't abandoning us, he's abandoning us, he won't give us more money. Every time they say they're being abandoned, it means, it's like the wife with the credit card. Oh, husband, I need another 1,000. I don't have it. Oh, he's abandoned me. He won't give me the things I need. All this melodrama is the hyperbolic ramblings of immature people, right? People who can't be told no, Ukraine, right? Who increasingly cannot accept responsibility, Ukraine, and overspends, right? Catastrophizes everything, always has to get their way, right? Ukraine is just like Europe. They're all feminists, right? They're all immature, right? And yeah, immature people exaggerate, they catastrophize, they can't accept responsibility, and they always want daddy to bail them out. And when daddy doesn't do it, he's the worst person in the world. And then they spend the rest of their lives moaning and groaning and trying to ruin their reputation, where most people are just thinks that what they really need is a spanking. And Vladimir Zelensky, his spanking will you most likely be his friends, right? In order to get out from under the mess they're in, will kill him and then say he committed suicide just like his idol in Berlin in 1945. But we also know his idol didn't commit suicide. That was just a body for the Allies to ponder over. Took them a long time to figure out it wasn't him. It was the Russians who finally figured it out. But that was only because the Americans were able to, the Americans knew, didn't tell anybody. They had a relative. But yes, Zelensky is most likely going to fake his death and disappear as soon as the shit hits the fan. But you're probably wondering, Dave, hasn't there been enough shit thrown at the fan already? And you would think so. But as long as the cash flows, right, the bankers don't care. It's when there's no profit to be made. That is the real shit in the fan moment for Zelensky. When Klomaminsky realizes that all his investments, all his time, right, for what? Sooner or later, right, and I am hoping that I am awakening more people every day, that as the number of awakening wonders out there realize that Ukraine is a shit show by hundreds of people who should never have power, and the reality is no one should have that much power, right? I think the idea of presidents, and whether or not it's Trump or Macron, I think it's about time you realize that presidents putting all the power into an individual's hands get you shit shows, right? You may not like Trump, you may not like Macron, you may think the sun shines out of Zelensky's orifices, but eventually you get you get Macron, you get Zelensky, you get Keir Starmer, right? When there's no accountability for the ruling class, when the opposition cannot do anything but sit there and rumble and grumble, and when they get by the time they get into power, the law says they're the statutes of limitations, right? And then you get gross incompetence, left, right, and centre, time after time. You got to admit, right? The Republicans do have some the Lindsey Grahams of the world who don't really achieve anything on their own, and is just a uniparty hack. But I mean, it's the same, right? How many times are they going to show firemen training videos and tell us that they're fighting fires in Ukraine, right? How many times are they going to tell us that they've only destroyed civilian targets before you go, this war is burning and people are tuning out? I know. But unfortunately, big channels are still there, exciting people, dramatising the war. See, I suppose if I dramatised the war and hyped it up and hyped everybody up around it, the YouTubes would give me more views because they would say, you're not boring. You're not boring, Dave. You're too boring, Dave. You're not hyping up the man murdering men. You've got to hype up the war so that we can sell insurance to the morons who should be able to figure out how to get insurance without advertising. Now, Svetkov has fallen or been liberated, depending on your personal beliefs. I'm not here to tell you which is which. There's yet again a training video, a nice little spectacular moment caught that will be repeated ad infinitum. I mean, I do it too. I repeat thumbnails, so I shouldn't complain. But it would be nice to actually get something real for a change that isn't a file photo from months or years ago. Now, the winter war is fierce, and the Russians admit the Ukrainians are putting up fierce resistance. However, attack aircraft were able to break the Ukrainian defense. The forces moved in from Brattleboro East, establishing a bridgehead, and after days of fighting, the Russian troops destroyed 2 control centers for the Ukrainian unmanned vehicles in the area, and the Ukrainians retreated from the town. See, without the drones, modern warfare is coming to... This is the problem when you put your power into wonder weapons. You now can't fight without drones. You created a dependency. The troops without drones have no idea, right, where the Russian artillery is, because they can't rely on their hearing, the snow, the howling winds, or just the sheer lack of training. But without the mortars it's like mortar crews without their modern computers, like somebody they get a set of coordinates and then they got to set on their map and work out by the time they work it all out, they're done, right? War moves too fast for the human mind. So when they lose their digital operation centers, they have to retreat. They've got no choice. They're cut off, right? There's no sitting there in the trenches with your AKs and your javelins and thinking you can hold off the Russian forces, because the Russian forces will just continue using air power against them. And by air power, I mean literally drones, right? Although the Su-35s did drop some precision strikes, but sad point, you need, right, when you're in a fast dynamic environment, you need to counter quickly. So if your front line, right, gets wiped out and you're in the second line, right, you can see it happening, but remember, they're not being wiped out by troops you can aim at. They're being wiped out by drones and other fast-moving objects like precision artillery. And without the digital command centers, all the Ukrainians can do is lob shots and hope they hit something. Well, that's no way to fight a war. You will lose every time. The enemy will just simply out-devastate you. Remember, the war is economic as much as it, and to some extent there is the hearts and minds, but they're losing the hearts and minds of Ukraine, right? Half of Europe is checked out, right? The other half is so full of cope that and they don't know what to do, but like most of them are old geezers who won't fight wars anyway, but the young liberal establishment, Well, they're ready to race off to Canada as soon as Europe goes to war, you know. But increasingly, the resistance by Ukrainians in large groups. Well, Zelensky pretends he's not losing. His citizens are increasingly standing up to forced conscription. Now, whether you believe it or not, whether you believe it or not, particularly those in the US who seem to think that winning in Ukraine is the same as resisting Trump. You know, they've got to have their excuses. They've got to have their cope. You know, everybody who was a part of their little clique has to be constantly personally attacked. Their appearance has to be mocked and ridiculed. But reality, you know, their intelligence questioned, their sanity questioned, right? Everything is the Epstein files, right? Meanwhile, the reality is this monstrosity, this insignificant insect who sold his soul to be president, right? Servant of the people, yes. What a Orwellian name that tis, right? But no matter how much he abuses the people, no matter how much he resists getting thrown out of office, no matter how much this petulant child barks about life's not fair, you know, give me more, the West has to do more. You're my friend, you're supposed to give me everything I want. You know, more increasingly, I think Ukraine is going to further isolate themselves. It's inevitable that once Europe realizes the profits are not going to flow, there's no milk and honey factory that will endlessly produce all their desires, fulfillment. You know, this ain't Fantasy Island. Your fantasies don't come true. And, a glossy coat of paint does not count as refurbishment when there's rust everywhere to be seen. Eventually, the governments have to be torn down like broken buildings they are and rebuilt leaner, right? This is a lesson society hasn't learnt, right? Once governments become bloated welfare institutions, right, they need to be dismantled. All the government workers fired and replaced with new people who are not entrenched, not systemically. You know what happens when a prisoner stays in prison too long? They become so systemic captured, right? That they get out of prison. They go to bed exactly at the same time. They get up exactly. They are so institutionalized, right, that they cannot function anymore, right? They can't get a job. Why? Because it will break their routine. They get up, they do all their little routine, and that routine takes up their whole day. And then, so it's up, do an 8-hour routine, and back to bed. So they're spending more and more of their life in bed. Well, it's like that with government workers. They're spending most of their life in bed, right? They're spending most of their life carrying out these pathetic little paper trail routines. No, I think institutionalization doesn't only apply to prisoners. I think term limits, I think we're going to see, I think a more clearly defined constitution, term limits. I think Americans are too proud. The fact their constitutions never needed changing in 250 years. No, you've had constitutional amendments. The 19th been the worst. But, we have a constitutional amendment to ban alcohol and a constitutional amendment to unban alcohol. No. Increasing government interference, right? Increasing government complexity, increasing legal systems, increasing the number of them, increasing the number of government agencies and government responsibilities, is all a sign of a meddling system that is collapsing. And, the fact that Ukraine flags flying above the Union Jack in the UK is a clear sign, right, that UK is a broken system, and broken things are either repaired or replaced, right? They're not, but of course, Europe is proud of the fact that they can attack Russia and not face a full Soviet threat, right? In the 80s, right? Yeah. But the fact is, right, Russia has still, right, all these cargo containers that go to Ukraine. Lots of them they blow up, right? You are losing tons of ammunition, but they just take this. It's just the cost of doing business. They believe, but enough gets through to, right? But the UK has tried to increase the number of artillery rounds, and they've they've put on hold indefinitely a number of factories because there's no cash, right? They can't go to America and just buy on credit like they did, right? America should have learnt their lesson from World War One, right? The war's almost over. We just need another billion to keep, and we're in Berlin. And the Americans go, wait, we gave them $1 billion. We gave the Germans $1 billion. That was a mistake. But then now we asked the British for $1 billion, and the Germans are now asking for another $1 billion. We're going to lose $4 billion. We better get it. We better end it. And this is now what they're counting on, right? You went in World War II and bailed them out. The British said, you were cowards. You weren't there with the beginning. No, well, they should, you're weak for going in the first place, knowing, right, the only way you were going to win was with the Americans, right? It's the whole point of not funding war in the first place, right? A lot of people have said it, but The Guardian, who couldn't protect a warm cup of piss, let alone democracy, right? Because though they care about is selling newspapers, and they can't even do that effectively, right? They've got to beg for donations and suck up to political parties for money. This is the problem. They're not independent, right? First Amendment should only apply to independent organisations, not government-funded organisations. Right? The government-funded organisations should not be protected from lawsuits. Right? Munition factories, right? Southern Wales have despite being completed, are unopened. Right, the funding is not there. Right, European arms factories, again, despite all this talk about Ukraine, they're opening more centres. Right, Ukraine hasn't paid its bills, so how are they going to open more? Right, they're delayed. Right, all this talk about opening more. Right, billions, right, of weapons. 733 million in weapons, which is a drop in the ocean. But remember, Zelensky wants this to be aid, not purchases, right? And increasingly, a lot of your armed shipments to Ukraine are exports to conflicts in Africa. So, again, this is a lot of people are saying this is a phony war, right? If Ukraine's so desperate for these weapons, how they sell, what? And Ukraine says, we need it to fund our government. See, if Russia, they know exactly, right, within reason, right? They know Russia's movements, right? They can plot their current position on supercomputer, right? They can have a couple of dozen people all across the front just keeping that updated, right? Just by watching, right? The AI, smart pattern recognition, right? They see all the little movements of dots on the map, right? They know, right, with pretty much certainty where they should aim their guns, aim their missiles, but Ukraine is so obsessed with destroying the Russian economy. And sooner or later, right, the Russians will unleash the Donetsk. Now it has been confirmed that there are Chinese components. What a shock, what a shock. Right. But you go, why does it matter? Why do you care? Right? Why does it matter? Right? Because Zelensky thought that he had done a deal with Xi and got their neutrality. Oh no, the Chinese haven't kept their word. Oh no, the Chinese lied. The Chinese lied to Zelensky. Oh, had to claim. Oh, Xi telling a lie. Who could have foretold that? Who could have foretold that Xi Jinping would choose Putin over Zelensky? But this is Zelensky just can't take it, right? He just cannot believe that politicians would lie to him. What a surprise that he actually thinks he's that important. He thinks he's the center of the world. He thinks that everything now hinges on Ukraine. The whole freedom, the whole world. And we zoom out and it's like, point the Ukraine on the map without all these markers. Will you? Right? Right? Pakistan is more important. They're a major gas and oil producer. Their gas and oil days are slowly coming to a halt, just like Libya. Right? Anybody remember Libya? Where's Libya on the map? They say it's not important anymore. You know, it's like Saudi Arabia. How important is Saudi Arabia? Right? It's just an obstacle. You know, the Saudi Arabians had their chance long before the Suez Canal. Heck, they even had a chance recently. A double canal, right? Up to right a full double width canal, right? Between them and Iraq, right, all the way through, right, to some extent, yeah, probably would have involved Jordan, right? Now, if it wasn't for Gaza, right, and Gaza would have been the ideal port, but Gazans, again, short-sighted fools, right, care more, right? Little Gaza, tiny little independent city, could have been richer and more important to the world than Israel. But Gaza, and its arrogance, wants to stick in the said no. It's un-Islamic. This is the problem in the world. Right? People are so proud and boastful and arrogant. And just because a biblical prophecy said so it justifies it in their mind to say, look what we can do. We can be defiant. Money is the devil. There's more important things than money. Yeah, but all those more important things cost money. You still, right? Takes effort. People have to get paid, earn a living, right? The economy, whether you like it or not, right? This is why we have millionaires and billionaires, because they go out and achieve while everybody else makes excuses. Right? Elon Musk, right? There would have been a lot more millionaires and there would have been a lot less billionaires and a lot more billionaires if more people invested. I'm not sure if Elon, you understand, Elon Musk put out all these investments, right? All these, but people just said, nah, it's going to be government funded, right? Okay. then don't complain when you personally, right, can't pay the bills. Right? Ukraine is now becoming an excuse for everything that's wrong in the world. It's so full of itself, it tries to make it the center of every story, whether it's the Olympics. Oh, we almost got a medal, but they stole it from us. Yeah. Your boy in Ukrainian skier breaks the rules. Yes, and no, it's a conspiracy. The Russians did it, like it's getting to the point where it's not just going to be Ukraine fatigue, right? Yeah, Ukraine is going to be the undesirables of Europe, right? As Eastern Europeans should hang their head in shame, for this monster they've created. They instead of standing up to Ukraine, they said we're going to stand with Ukraine, and now they're ideologically captured. Right? They don't know what to do. At least Hungary and Slovakia had the balls and the brains to figure out that Ukraine was going to be a shit show from the start. They've been fairly consistent, right? Latvia and Poland haven't learnt the hard way, right? Poland antagonising Germany, Latvia and Eastern Europe thinking that Russians were going to save them from the Nazis, they're the great liberators, And again, history has proven time and time again, right? And I'm not a big fan of Vladimir Putin, but at least he is fighting the deep state in Ukraine. At least he is the only one, right? It's like when Europe made a big deal about the breakup of Yugoslavia and that the Serbs kicking out the foreigners was a bad, naughty. Yet when Russia wants to protect the people of the Donbass from the Yukis, it is, you're interfering in the affairs of Ukraine. How dare you? It's like, what? And this is the problem, right? You go around intervening in other countries' affairs, eventually others get the notion that they can interfere with things going on their borders, so and their spheres of influence, and then telling you that no, hands off Syria, that's our sphere of influence. But somehow, so many people so long got it in their head that they are the world's police, and then they go, when things go bad, it's America's naughty. They think they're arrogant. They think they're the world's police. So you have, people with no political consistency, which means they have no moral compass, and you wonder why things go wrong. So thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel and support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree description below or in my profile. See you in the next video. Bye for now.